Well, I want to thank you so much for joining us for one of our webinars here at HFA. I'm Mark Schumacher, the CEO of this association. It's always my pleasure to lead these discussions because really what you're taking part in today is just another part of an incredible library we have at myhfa.org/webinar, because these webinars, we stockpile them there. You can access them at any time. And we always pick subjects that we are not just doing because we want to, but because we know from you as members of HFA what you're looking for. And today we're talking about a huge subject, and that is managing high performance sales teams. We've talked about, finding good salespeople. We've talked about trying to retain them, but now it's really about managing them. And that's always something that all of you have had to deal with on a daily basis. So we're going to get to this in just one quick second, but I want to do a little bit more housekeeping here. Just want to let you know that on the right side of your screen, you will see a box that has a little chat function in it. If you have any questions you want to have us tackle, please put it in there and send it. I know that a number of you sent in questions in advance, but we always like to get them on the fly if you're inspired by something to bring it up and to do that. So without further ado, let me introduce our guests. We have from Eldorado Furniture down in South Florida, we have Miguel Valle. He's a senior sales leader there. Oh, good. Mark, let's show up right off the beginning of the program. Hold on a second. Yeah, that's always good. Always good to have that happen right out of the gates. Miguel, we appreciate you joining us very, very much. And then these other two faces you're becoming more and more familiar with at HFA, because Rob Ball and Matt Pridemore are both trainers for the HFA Sales Academy. And they have an incredible background in retail, owning stores, leading sales teams. And so their expertise is absolutely terrific. And that's what we're going to tap into today. So guys, thanks for joining us. Really appreciate it. And by the way, when we are recording this, and we're, this is now, real time here on November 10th, we just hope that since a couple of you are connected to stores in Florida, we know that you've had another hurricane down there that Nicole came by. So just give us a quick thumbs up here. So Miguel, everything okay with the Eldorado stores? You guys doing okay?
Everything is well, thank God.
Good. And Rob, okay, good. We're all good. Just never want to skim over something like that. So guys, let's get into this. We've really struck a vein here, because it's one thing to have good talent, but it's another one to manage it. And the management part of this is such a huge piece of the retention of good people. So in trying to figure out where to start this thing, I want to just ask, just right out of the gates, and I'm just gonna pick Rob. I'm gonna pick you because you're in my upper left quadrant here.
Sounds good.
Are there, when we talk about managing sales teams right now, based upon the last couple of years, are there any things that stick out in particular as those, one or two items that as you're trying to manage these teams that has become super critical that maybe wasn't 2 years ago? Like the right nows, what are the things that are absolutely your biggest focus when it comes to managing these teams?
So it's a great question. I think there's a couple key factors here, but number one, you mentioned over the past few years, and Miguel, I'm not sure if you experienced this, but I know Matt and I have, we've experienced a great resignation. And so we've seen a lot of that talent that had been a part of our organizations for, 10, 15 years, unfortunately go try to find either greener pastures or, enter into retirement. And so we lost that legacy-based sales mentality that was extremely driven in individuals. We also lost the product knowledge. I came up in a time where, we had a lot of reps that used to come around from store to store and kind of teach you the ins and outs of furniture, a lot of product knowledge, a lot of features and benefits, and how to relay that emotion to the customer. And I think that that's gone. And so, right now, I think we take for granted what we have, amassed in terms of knowledge over the past, 20 years or so. And we really need to make sure that we're taking training as the forefront of our mind, especially with these new individuals. That's the key to giving these people the success that they deserve to have on our sales floor. Sales management is all about putting training in the forefront of your organization's mindset and core values.
And when you said something really key, and that is that there's a vacuum that's been created because of this great resignation, because of this difficulty in finding people. When you talked about two things here, loss of experience and loss of product knowledge, I mean, man, you talk about a gap. I mean, Miguel, I'm going to throw it to you on that one. There's never been, I guess, a more critical time to have your sales management skills honed, because you're having to fill a lot in here. Miguel, is that fair to say? Did I lose you? Oh, did he freeze?
I think you froze.
Can you hear me?
Oh,
There you go.
Now I got you. Sorry, you froze there for a second. Did you hear the question?
I lost you, please. Would you repeat the question?
Sure. Rob was talking about the fact that in the last couple of years, because of all the economic issues and everything else that's gone on, there's been a huge loss of people that had experience and product knowledge and things of that sort. And what we're really talking about here is that one of the keys to making certain that you've got a good, leadership sales process in place here for your teams is because you have a gap to fill that hasn't been there before. Is this something that you've experienced there? And can you talk a little bit about that? Because boy, it's tough to lose that, almost that mentoring piece of the puzzle.
We have noticed a difference, as Rob mentioned. However, our focus is not entirely on product knowledge and closing abilities. We focus more on people, on our customers' needs. We train our sales staff to have that empathy, to follow 5 steps of the sale, which is really honed down on what is it that the customer's needs are, what are they looking for their home, and based on that, we nurture a trustworthy relationship. Basically, we're looking for longevity in return business, not the one that we're closing today, but making sure that the experience, is far superior when they expect it, and that they will come back in 6 months, in a year. And I think all goes back to when we hire for personality, making sure that those new incomers are not the most experienced in sales. They may not have the best skills on product knowledge, but that their personality is in line with our values, and that has helped make the most out of every single transaction. We know traffic is thinning, so we want to make sure that the ticket goes up with the thinner traffic.
Well, I tell you, and Matt, I'm going to throw this one to you because that's an interesting balance of comments here. Because in the one aspect, we're acknowledging the fact that there's been experience that's been lost in certain ways, and then Miguel brings up a great point here that so now as you're hiring, as you're bringing new people in, you're wanting them to have this this very customer centric approach and this empathy and everything else. So how do you manage that team when you've got some gaps over here, you've got some newbies over here? I mean, this is a real salad mix of stuff.
Yeah,
so,
I would really like to kind of take a little bit of what Miguel talked about and a little bit of what Rob talked about, and something that has been on my heart for many years, and we, Rob and I have talked about it a lot. To me, culture eats strategy for lunch. And that's been on my heart for years and years of watching companies that, try to build a perfect strategy, but, with going along with the culture eats strategy for lunch is that I want to build a team that the culture thrives on, and making sure that anyone that I bring in on the team is a good fit. And I think that word fit is a big key term for me. And especially when we talk about the mass resignation, like Rob talked about a minute ago, is, there are gaps to fill, but are we going to fill those gaps on a short-term outlook or a long-term outlook? And when we look at that, another piece that I use as far as my process, when I first say it will kind of come off harsh, but I hope I can explain it in a way that, will be understanding to anyone on this call, is when I have resumes come across my desk, or, I talk to my leadership, my way of explaining it is I want them to fire before they hire. And I want them to look at, I want to get them to try to find red flags within that person that they might be looking to bring on board, because I want them to make sure that they are a good fit and that they would fit our culture. and going a little bit deeper than that is having that long-term vision of, you know, of making sure that we're bringing the right people on board, not just for now, but for the long term. Does that make sense?
No, it does. It does. And I think that, and Rob, I'm going to throw this to you now because since we're talking here about managing these teams, so you know, we can talk about skills and all this trainability stuff, but what I'm hearing both Matt and Miguel say is that if we're talking culture, we're talking about a whole different way of managing when you're not just managing specifically to ROI, you're, you know, to KPIs, things like that. You're talking about culture. Talk more about that, because boy, that's a key management tool here at the moment.
Absolutely. So KPIs are extremely important. I don't want to disregard how important those are to a business, because you know, there's an old saying, you know, you can have the most beautiful vessel in the world, but if the captain doesn't know where it's going, it's useless, right? And so you need to know what your goals are, and the team, everybody on the team, from the warehouse and delivery driver to the people that are cleaning our stores to making sure our sales associates and our sales, you know, leaders are, you know, rowing the boat all in the same direction. That's extremely important. That really does help with culture, is that clarity. But ultimately is really defining what your brand stands for and what your non-negotiables are. You know, our non-negotiables are quite simple. You know, we're going to do some community service. We're going to be a community branded, you know, organization that we're going to give back to our communities when they're in times of need. And that gives our people a sense of purpose. You know, when I talk about training beforehand, the reason why we put training so far in the forefront of our mission statement for our business and our core values is because we want those new people coming on board to experience the same level of success that everybody on this call has probably achieved. And you've seen it. And Mark, I remember, I'd relay back to the first conversation you and I ever had together. You know, you saw so many people coming into the home furnishing space, and they would enter into it. They'd be there for 6 months, a year, then they'd go sell cars, houses, whatever it is. This is a phenomenal career for a lot of people. And so we're going to hire for culture, but we're going to train for those people to stay with us for, you know, their entire career. And so just kind of relying back on that. So sales management to me is making sure that you have a clear vision of what your company's purpose is, how you're going to give back to your communities, and to make sure that you're training your people and giving them all the tools in order to make them successful.
Okay, well then let's appreciate that. Then let's dig down a little bit further. Miguel, I want to go back to you, because you know, this is, you've given us a great example here of the types of you know, the piece of the culture that you put forward when it comes to this relationship driven, multi-sale, customers need, et cetera. So how do you manage to that? Because part of that is soft skills, not just hard skills that we can KPI. So how do you do that? Give some insights to the people that are listening to this webinar today.
Right. It's basically deeply ingrained in the organization. It starts from the ownership down, the way they treat the staff. You know, all of us obviously are held to follow our job descriptions, but reality is we will have some good days and we'll have some bad days. We're gonna make mistakes on a daily basis, but it's more of how us in leadership react to the mistakes or those KPIs that were not met. You know, if you did great, you know, you praise obviously, and you should do it publicly. If you didn't meet, or if you made that mistake, you know, leadership is supposed to have that conversation with each individual. You know, what's going on, what's happening. You know, how can I make you perform better, help you get out of the slump. That type of approach. You know, intimidation, it really isn't an approach that we go for in our organization. It doesn't work. You don't have good results with it. So it kind of trickles down. You know, you have the board. This is their approach with executives. Executives, that's the way they behave with store leadership, and then store leadership kind of takes care of their sales staff, their operations staff, and they in turn give your customers the best possible experience.
Okay, so the culture has to be from the top down. Totally get that. So Matt, how do you do this then? How do you manage to the cultural piece at the same time as you're trying to manage to those you know, those KPIs, et cetera? So how do you
great question. And yeah, I think speaking directly to the sales managers that are on this call with us, and I appreciate you guys being a part of it. But I think that, so I want communication, I want it to be concise, and I want it to be consistent. And I think those three pieces, your vision to your team, you've got to have a clear vision, a clear direction. It's got to be consistent, and you have to hold your teams to constantly hit, understanding those expectations and allowing them, like Miguel said, allowing them to make some mistakes, but learning from those mistakes as they go, but making sure that that is clear, concise, and communicated to the teams that they can go out and execute.
So, and Rob, I'll give you the last word on this because this is really tough because training to specific guidelines is one thing, but training to culture is another, and keeping that performance up. Do you want to just also add to that as well? Because I think this is kind of a critical piece for a lot of people on this call.
So there's a really cool exercise. I wish I had a whiteboard here. I was thinking about it while Miguel and Matt were talking about it. Very recently in our organization, we went through a burst of acquisitions, and our eye really got off the ball. I mean, I'll be honest with you, be certainly humble and tell you guys that lost sight of what our real true mission was, and that's making sure that our people were super successful and having good long careers and bringing money home to their families. And so I came across a few different articles, and I remember one from Tony Robbins, a huge Tony Robbins fan. I'll constantly talk about him. And he said, do a value chain of your organization. And a value chain is very simple. You can just look it up online. It's how many touch points do you really have with all of the people within your organizations? And I realized, you can go back a couple of years and do this, and you can see, at least in our organization, that my personal touch points, whether they were through webinar, whether they were through phone calls, whether through live meetings or one-on-ones, our touch points were depleted down to almost nothing. I mean, like literally one a year during a holiday party. And I'm like, well, wait a minute. How could I really be a keeper of the culture? How can I manage my sales team if my touch points have diminished so much? And so what I would employ everybody to do on this call is to do a value chain. Find out how many touch points, and be honest with you. You're the only one that's going to see this. See how many touch points you actually have with your management team. And then in addition to that, how many touch points does your management team have with their sales associates on the sales floor to go over KPIs, to go over their own personal wish lists and their goals for their career, different things like this. And we said this on the last call, Simon Sinek, start with why. You got to make it very personal to your people, and your leadership, like Miguel was talking about before, it's a culture thing. Your leadership has to understand that, and those touch points need to be personal. A biggest failure that I've had in my career, especially early on, was making it all about the KPI. Again, extremely important, but that is not the reason people are going to perform for you. You're not going to manage your sales team through KPIs. You're going to manage sales teams through making sure that you're talking about what's in it for them. And so do that value chain, and I think you guys will all be very surprised about what you see.
I would like to add to what Rob was saying. Touch points are key. A lot of organizations out there, they wait till the end of the month to look at numbers. We lost out on the KPIs. That's not something we do. Actually, we have a process called just in time, and on a daily basis, our leadership picks out the daily goal number. They disseminate it amongst all the sales associates that are on the floor, and they give them the clear daily goal. And that means a certain amount of dollars, mattresses, protection plans, and even reviews. And every 2 or 3 hours, there's a walkthrough. The leadership takes a walkthrough on the floor, and there's a pat on the back if you made it happen. And if you haven't yet, there's a lot of 1 minute management motivation. And at the end of the month, we have seen very positive results with this process. So definitely touch points on a daily basis throughout the day is key for ROI.
Okay, and thank you for jumping in with that, which leads me to one of the many questions we had beforehand here. Matt, speaking of that though, is there a point where it's too much? There's been questions here about how often, do you, I mean, clearly at Eldorado, it's very consistent. Is there such a thing as too much, or is it more about your approach as far as this consistently, keeping them?
That's a beautiful question, and I think something that I wrote down and that I talk about often, where it does start to border on that micromanagement piece. I love where I love where Miguel was going with that, with making sure that we do have the 1 minute management, kind of get in there, say your piece, and get out. But we have to allow our sales teams, they are going to make mistakes, and we have to allow them to make mistakes so that they can learn from those. I mean, I think all of us in leadership that are on this call right now, we look back and those days that we made those mistakes, we want to fail small so that we can have big success. And but allowing the people that were around us that kind of helped us get to the position where we're at, gave us a little bit of room to grow. Give that room to grow. I would completely agree with the 1 minute management. Get in there, show your teams, hey, this is how I would like it done. Give them your why, like Rob said from Simon, and then get out and be able to shadow, watch from afar. I like the word sticky, of staying sticky with your people, but not right on top of them, and give them room to grow, give them room to fail, and then obviously we want them to learn from those.
Yeah, let them breathe a little bit.
Yeah, you
Correct.
can I add a little bit to that? So you can learn a lot from sports teams. I mean, the coach of a football team is always on the sidelines, giving the offense and defense feedback immediately, celebrating the wins, discussing the failures, and it's okay to give that feedback, in my opinion, as often as possible. Again, you don't have to be daunting. It's more of like a stand-up high five, or hey, next time let me help you with that situation, so that way we can experience success together. And so I like to praise often, but as a sales manager on the floor, there was an old rule back in the day. You weren't allowed to sit down if you were a sales manager of the floor, like a Raymore Flanagan or an Ashley Furniture, where I came from. And so you were constantly walking around, and that was so that way you were available for a TO, but you were also there to watch, just like, you watch your customers' body language as they're, walking through the showroom floor and seeing what they might be looking at for a next purchase, or even, on the, redirect during the sales process. But your sales associates are your customer too. And so watch your sales associates, watch the way their body language is. That can tell you all that you need to know, whether they're going to experience success with a customer or not. And maybe you can intervene at that time. And so always be walking around, manage by walking around.
That football analogy, the one thing you don't want to do is don't pull a Tom Brady and break the iPad. That's the only thing you don't want to do. Don't do those tools are critically important and they're expensive.
Rob, that also adds, that also gives you the opportunity to develop your staff and identify talent for growth. If you're on the floor on a daily basis and you're watching your staff, taking care of the customers and closing those deals, you start picking out the one leader in your team. And if you dedicate some time to that associate, perhaps you have an opportunity to bring someone on the leadership team. So you're never going to identify leadership talent if you're not on the floor.
Well, which is going to lead me to the next question here in just a second, but I just want to make a comment, is that what I'm hearing, and I always try to translate things here, is I'm hearing you saying feedback, guidance, don't be punitive about it. You know what I'm saying? Don't like every little mistake and like you're on them. Make it a teaching moment, a growth moment, right? But don't be punitive about it. And I think that's it. And I'm getting, you guys are all nodding yes there. So I think that's kind of one of the underlying things I heard there. But there's some questions. Let's get to a couple of these questions. There's kind of fast movers here. And I love this one because Miguel just kind of led into this. When do you know you have a true leader? So as you're managing your sales team, you're looking for who are those other leaders that are going to be there. So when do you know you have a true leader? Miguel, I'll start with you since you talked about that.
It's simple. All his peers are going to them and asking questions and asking them for advice. That's how you know you have a leader.
Okay. Rob, Matt?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think it's simple. Your gut, for the most part, as a leader in your own organization, you're going to be able to recognize, who those teammates are going to more often. Like Michael Jordan, who's going to get the ball, when the game is on the line. And so, that individual is normally pretty prevalent and easily identified. And so, yeah, I agree with Miguel 100%.
But you're not going to know unless you're out on the floor, which is what you guys just said a few minutes ago, right? You're not going to have that. Matt, let me ask you this one. So here's another question. Does role playing work?
Yes. And to take that a little bit further, the issue with a lot of role playing is that the leadership and the people they are trying to teach, when it's going back and forth, they practice enough to get it right. But what I try to implore my teams to do is practice it so much that you can't get it wrong. And there's a vast difference there for me in the fact to be able to cut out the ums and the uhs, and to make sure that you're doing it so well that it's, it builds that confidence in there. I think confidence is key in this. That's for me absolutely the key. Is you become extremely confident in how you portray yourself, and that's not by doing a role play one time or two times. It's practicing over and over and over.
Practice makes permanent, right? I've never heard a truer line in my life. Practice makes permanent. So you like the idea of role playing, Rob? Do you as well? And I'll let Miguel get in there as well, because that's the question: is it effective, and how do you get your teams to do that?
Yeah, in every aspect of life. I mean, just not to make everything about sports, but do sports teams practice? Does Muhammad Ali, when he was boxing, obviously, did he practice the jab? Of course he did. Why? He knows how to throw a jab, but he's going to continuously, relentlessly practice. Training is not something that you have done. It's something that you do. It's something that you're going to consistently do throughout your entire career. You got to constantly role play. I personally, and if you want to make a fun exercise with your sales teams, don't role play furniture stuff. Do improv. Do crazy situations. Obviously, they need to be professional and courteous to everybody in the store, but do improv just about weird scenarios. Like, you had a bad experience at Publix and, they're just telling you my pleasure every other word, but make it fun, and then sprinkle in there some real true, identifiable things that are happening in your store. But you don't want to just throw this daunting task of role playing about selling a sofa to somebody. That's not fun for anybody. Although it's highly necessary, it's not going to be a lot of fun. And so do improv, and then sprinkle a little situation in there. So the icebreaker's the improv, and then the role play is the tactical stuff.
Miguel?
Very good. I agree with both. I think technical training is important. Product feature benefit is important, but role play is also important. Saturday meetings, get the team together, role play. How would you do it? Do it like a workshop style role play. How would you do it? How are you having success? Selling more mattresses. How are you landing that Tempur-Pedic product? Reality is everyone there has a different perspective, and we all benefit from hearing everyone's opinion on how they succeed, basically.
Yeah, I do like that idea, Rob, about make it something other than furniture, because discovery is discovery. Good sales approach, a good sales approach regardless, but it kind of takes everybody out of that. It seems like that would make it kind of fresh and kind of cool. I like that.
It is extremely important that when you're training or you're coaching on whatever aspect in sales, you go outside of the industry and you do an analogy with something else. Last time that you went to the mall, when you went to a restaurant, when you stayed at a hotel, remember this experience. Would you rather had it different, and that it helps land the message that you're trying to convey.
And what I love about that, and I see the other guys nodding as well, is that put your sales. It sounds to me like I don't want to put words in your mouth. It sounds like you're saying put your sales team in that mindset of a customer. What was that experience you had that was good or bad, and why? Have you seen that being successful too? Is just getting somebody just to say, hey, in your own life, what are the things that worked well? What did somebody do?
What happens is you start to paint a picture in their mind, and they start thinking of those times where, we've got some sales associates that they start, selling out of their own pocket and being worried about, trying to sell that high-end mattress of, oh my gosh, that customer is not going to want to buy from me. Well, when you think back to maybe a great time that you had at a hotel or at a Publix or at a car shopping, when that experience became real for you as a customer, price started to kind of go out the door just a little bit, because you saw the value in what was going on. And I think it's so equating value, and I think that's something we need to bring to the table here is understanding value and how you can build value within our products. And that comes to, in my mind, comes through that experience. price starts to go out the window as that experience goes higher and higher.
If the associate is able to deliver a personalized experience, in other words, this product has 200 features and obviously benefits to customers, but reality is not all customers are looking for the same thing within the same product. If you're able to deliver the product, your demonstration specifically to your customer's experience, the wallet budget starts becoming larger and larger and larger. And in essence, a lot of the times you don't even ask for the sale. The sale is just going to happen by default. When can I have it? Do you have it in stock? How can I pay for it? That you kind of triple into the closing aspect of the sale. So.
Yeah, I remember, and I can't remember where I read it, but a number of years back, about how when you get to the transactional part of a sale, that if you've done all that you just talked about, if you've connected, if you've done all of that, that's the easy part then. The finalizing the transaction, the easy part, if you've had those behaviors off the top and really made that connection, understood what the customer wants, you're good to go. All right, I got another question we're going to throw out here, and I'm going to throw this one to Rob to start. So Rob, how about this one? I love this because I understand, I think, where this person's coming from. How do you keep your sales team committed through the entire sales process? And I think that's an interesting comment, because I get the sense that they're talking about there's some people who are great at the front end and the back end. How do you create that consistency? Because it is one sort of continuing conversation sometimes with the customer.
So it's an interesting question. I don't think I've ever thought of that. But
it's why I'm here.
Yeah, no, it's great. I love it. That's the doozy. No, I'm kidding. So, why would you start a race without trying to finish, right? I mean, that's kind of where my mind goes. But if you're having that issue in your organization, one cool thing that we've done in the past that may help with that is, wouldn't work in some of my stores, because some of my stores have 6 sales associates. I mean, you can split it up into 2 teams, but maybe like Miguel's stores where you have big sales teams, 20, 25, 30 sales associates, maybe even more in certain instances. Split everybody up into teams. If you're having individuals that have that, if they're strong on the back end, they're not great at the greeting for some reason, which is a training opportunity, obviously, for us. But break them into TOs for a day, turnovers for the day, right? They're almost like your sales managers for the day. And so you split the team up into 4 different teams, 2 different teams, whatever it might be, and have the people that are the best at the greeting work the greeting, and then the best people that are at the close, for example, kind of introduce themselves somewhere throughout that sales process. I know that sounds kind of like a car dealership, but if you really do it well, where the customers don't feel like, there's like, hey, let me sit you down at this table, it's a very fun and exciting way to get everybody engaged. For me personally, when I have sales associates that are having issues with the sales process, documentation for me, and I'm not saying like you write them up or anything like that, but what I mean is you have to keep track of your opportunities. The most important person in our business is our customers. And you have to have that sales associate every single day write down their objections, okay? And so let's say you have 10 ups and every single day for the past week, and now you've had 70 opportunities throughout the week, and every single one of those objections for the customers that did not purchase was just looking, or they couldn't find anything that they were looking for, or the financing wasn't correct for them, yet nobody else on your sales floor is experiencing that same result. It really tells you where you need to work and train with your sales associate on. So if they're saying that they're just looking, well, have them shadow a person that gets through the greeting with no problem. If they're having an issue with the financing, maybe let's get them on the conference call with one of our financing specialists and let's talk to them. Maybe there's a piece of that they're not confident on, so that we can become more well-versed, and have the confidence in order to translate that information to the customer. And so it really comes down to, and I wrote down here just in time. Is that like a CRM? It sounds like a CRM for your employees. Is that right, Miguel?
It's not a CRM.
Okay.
It's just right. Go ahead.
No, if you have some way to capture your performance metrics and those objections for your customers, it's a great way to just kind of circle back to them and provide them with that training. Because if you're getting just looking from all of your customers, that sales associate's not experiencing any success. They're probably not going to be with you for a long time. And it could be something as simple as changing the way they greet.
And I think too, I think what I'm already learning from you guys in this call here too, is that if you have this question about how do you keep your team committed through the entire sales process, then you need to really be monitoring the sales process to see where those gaps are. I sense this was probably asked by somebody that has seen great front end work and then drop off. And I have a feeling that's where this kind of came from. Matt, Miguel, any comments on that before we move on?
So for us, personalized service is not just a matter of saying it. That's the way our sales associates behave. That's their duties and responsibilities. So they're responsible from the very first moment they meet a customer to all the way a post-delivery phone call. We don't have a 1-800 number so that the customer, I mean, we do, but we don't advertise it where the customer calls for service or for follow-up. The sales associates, our compensation is structured post-delivery. So actually that keeps them engaged from the very time that they create transactions all the way until they deliver the product. Again, we are in a people's business. We don't close a transaction for today and that's it. We want to make sure that that customer returns in the future. So that's part of why we want to make sure that there's engagement, brand engagement between customer and El Dorado, and that happens through a person. That person becomes their confidant, hopefully for life.
And I love what you just said, Miguel, because also anybody that thinks the sales process stops once it's written up and the customer goes out the door, I mean, you just said something really key there. That sales process is all the way through. Before I move on, Matt, you have any comments on that?
Yeah, I think it might come across as being a little bit elementary, but we do talk about the process a lot. But make sure you have a process. There are a lot of times that I'm walking into other furniture stores, walking into car dealerships, walking into, you name it, anything customer related, and it doesn't seem like they really have much of a process. And I think you have to get that down first and making sure, we've talked about being clear and concise and communicating and things like that, but make sure you have a process, because if you don't have that clear process throughout the sale, then you can't even be able to identify exactly what's going on, where the ball is being dropped.
And it's funny, Matt, you talk about it being elementary, but isn't that where most failures come from? I mean, it's the old, we're using so many sports metaphors today. It's like the blocking and tackling. If you're not doing that, you got nothing. Right. So I think it's a great point. Rob, you're going to say something?
Yeah, no, so just to kind of piggyback on what Matt's saying, I mean, a process is so important, and that at the end of the day is what Miguel's talking about, right? In order to institute your core values and principles like the post-delivery follow-up, I mean, not only because it's a great opportunity to make the sale, but we want to make sure our customers are satisfied with that. If you don't have that written in your sales management process for your sales associates, how could you ever expect your sales associates to remember? If you have a standardized greeting or allowing your customers to walk around and shop and you're going to give them some breathing room, but you don't have a good reapproach in your sales management process, how could you ever possibly expect your sales associates to do it? So it is so important. Like Matt said, it's elementary, but it's something that we see in organizations all the time when we're asked to consult and different things, that there really just isn't one. So that way, if you want to be a relationship oriented company, how do you build that relationship? What does that process look like? And how do you make sure that somebody coming on board for the first time is able to execute that process successfully?
We train to piggyback off of that. We train on a good greeting, finding the need, demonstrating product, overcoming obstacles, and closing. Closing should happen naturally if the first three or four are accurate. Now, part of the leader's responsibility during the just-in-time walks is to walk the floor and make sure that this is actually happening the correct way. And if there's opportunity for coaching, let it be quickly, make adjustments, and then again, give them the freedom to go on the floor and do their thing. Every sales associate has their, way of closing transactions, and it's like art. Not all behave the same way, but that's how they bring the revenue. So.
There you go. All right, I've got a question here that I'm gonna, since the title of this webinar is managing high performance sales teams, I think this is something that can be an issue from time to time. So I'm gonna throw this one out, and you guys, whoever wants to jump on it first, go for it. How do you keep associates focused on what they're doing instead of what other members of the team are doing?
Yeah, I'll jump in really
Go
quickly.
ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think two things that we have to remember is that the people that we are managing, if you're a sales manager, your people want to be valued and they want to be challenged. And to me, what I see from sales associates, when they start kind of looking around, what happens is they start to compare themselves to the way the way that the other sales associates, like Mark said. And what I see is a lack of being challenged by their sales managers. And they start to put themselves, they start comparing their season to other people's seasons. And we have to understand that everyone is in their own season and you're carving your own path to success. And that challenge piece, when they feel challenged and they feel valued out on the sales floor, they aren't that keeps them a little bit more in line. Does that make sense?
Sure. I mean, this is they're kind of competitive to a fault, and you don't want to have that become something that tears the group apart. Rob, did you have something you wanted to add to that?
Well, comparison is the thief of joy, right? And so, when you get caught in that comparison trap, you just look at, hey, well, why is this person selling, 150 grand or $250,000 a month and I'm only selling 100? 100 grand is phenomenal. Don't just rest on the fact that you're not number one. I mean, continue to strive. That's okay, but don't not celebrate your wins. And so, as a sales manager, if you're recognizing something like that, it's in order for us. I mean, sales is an emotional game, and the emotional state of mind for all of our sales associates needs to be our highest priority as sales leaders, as sales managers. And so we have to make sure that we're doing our best to dictate that person's mindset as they walk through the door. And so if you're recognizing some attributes of that individual that need some work on, find a way to celebrate some of their successes, and don't just always go back to your top 20% of your sales associates and say great job to them without neglecting your 20%, your 60% rather, at the bottom or in the middle rather. So you got to make sure that you have, I like that. I'm going to take a look at that just in time, but make sure that you're scheduling the time to praise through those touch points everybody on your team and coach everybody on your team. So
yep. 20% of your the top 20% is basically your benchmark. The other 80, you need to make sure that you're having conversations with them and you're helping them. Confidence is big in sales. A lot of them may not have been in the furniture industry before, and I think a narrative with them, giving them the self-confidence that they need, letting them know that they're doing it fine. It builds for them to continue to grow.
We've had some follow-up questions to some of the things that have come up in these last few minutes here. And I know this is something, Matt, that you talked about, so I'm gonna throw this to you. What assessments do you use to measure fit, or is there such a thing? You talk about fit. Fit seems a little more, difficult to nail down sometimes, but are there assessments you can use to measure fit?
Yes, I really think there are. I think actually during interviews, during coaching periods, one thing for me is, as I am coaching with, if I put myself in the place of a sales manager and I'm talking to a sales associate, and I'm looking for fit, whether it be when I'm hiring or when I'm looking to promote or any of those pieces, is as I'm talking, are they looking to respond? Are they listening to respond, or are they listening to understand where I'm coming from? And I think that's a big piece to, because what happens a lot of times in sales, we've all seen it, where a sales associate actually has a sale made, the customer's ready to move on it, they're ready to buy, they're ready to transact, and the sales associate stands there and basically talks themselves out of a sale. We've seen that. And when I'm going through coaching, those are the type of things that I'm looking for. Are they looking to respond to me? Are they looking to try to overcome my coaching and try to tell me, well, but you didn't see this, well, but you didn't see that? or are they taking it all in and trying to learn? You know, coachability is part of that fit for me. And, you know, I have some specific steps, and I don't mind breaking those down in a longer period of finding out if someone is coachable. I can figure that out in just a couple of minutes. And like I said, I don't mind adding to those pieces of exactly how I go through that. But looking for coachability is probably my big thing with fit in that instance.
Miguel, what about you?
I would have to agree with Matt. El Dorado is a learning. We consider ourselves a learning organization. So from the top down, everyone has to be coachable. We all have weaknesses. We're not, experts. Arrogance doesn't really fit in our culture. So when we're on the sales floor as sales leaders, we have to make sure that our team is coachable. If someone isn't coachable and they're not willing to understand, they might not be a fit for the organization.
Yeah, I agree. Let me top spin that real quick, Mark, if you don't mind.
Sure.
One thing that we do in our organization is we're always looking for a display of willingness. And so if there's no barrier to onboarding, anybody can be hired. Anybody can interview well, right? They're going to say the right things. Are you going to be on time every day? Of course they're going to say yes, right? Are you the best salesperson in the world? Of course they're going to say yes, right? I mean, so what barrier to onboarding are you presenting that potential candidate that's going to display willingness? So, one thing that Matt taught me actually a long time ago was if you're going to make your sales associates go live on your social media pages or do video text messaging or something like that, make them go live or do a video message to you at the end of the interview, selling themselves on you. Another thing that we do is we have them throughout the sales process. We give them our sales process. We have them study that for the second interview. We have them go online, pick a product or two, any category that they want that excites them. And then they're going to present that to us. We tell them up front, you're not going to be great at this. That's okay. We don't want you to be great. We'll train you to be great. What we want to see is your willingness and eagerness to take part in this process. And you would not be surprised how many people are begging for a job on day one, but you ask them to come back on day two and they just don't show up. And so, you know what? We would have made a hiring mistake at the end of the day. Maybe they would have been great. Who knows? But at the end of the day, those individuals did not display willingness to us. They didn't display that they were willing to go above and beyond and to, institute some of our practices. And so they don't need to be a part of our organization.
Bam. So here's a good one to toss out to you guys, whoever wants to jump on this one. What are some ongoing training ideas for a seasoned team to help keep them motivated and engaged? So this is a little more of a long-termer here, but some ongoing training ideas for a seasoned team to help keep them motivated.
So here's a great idea. I'm just going to throw this out there. Have your seasoned sales team write a sales process for your company. When you work them through that, they're going to remind themselves of all the things that they forgot that they're not utilizing in the sales process. Sometimes taking that seasoned sales associate, tipping their hat to them and paying homage to those individuals, and then having them mentor somebody else takes them beyond where their sales were in the past 2 or 3 years. And all of a sudden they're selling, 150 grand as opposed to selling 100 grand. And so allow those people to write the sales process for you and you'd be surprised what they forgot.
Any other thoughts, guys, on that? That's a great response.
I like that a lot. I think it goes back to the, as we get in and we coach from a sales manager standpoint to the sales associate, somebody that's really seasoned is making sure, figuring out what is challenging and what they value and where they want to get to next in their stage. We've got people across our organization that some don't want to be sales managers, and that's okay, but they still want to be challenged in different ways. And you find that out by literally talking to them, coaching them, and getting that feedback. But it has to be a one-on-one process and not just sitting around in a big group of 10 people in a meeting and calling someone out. That happens on those one-on-one intimate moments at lunch. And take the time to take your people to lunch and talk to them one-on-one. And get to know their hopes and their dreams and figure out, some of them want a new car, some of them want a vacation, some of them want more money, and figure, they value you as a leader when you help get them to that next spot that they're trying to be. And as a team, if you're able to do that for them, it's seen as a success all the way around.
Understanding what their individual goals are is a great way to
Right.
keep them engaged and
Right.
motivated. Gotcha. And it's interesting too, because one of the things we talked about a little bit ago with role playing is that, and it was a follow-up question that came in, is another way to engage the seasoned folks is to maybe have them take even more of a mentoring role, even more of a, as part of that role play, really kind of leaning on them. Do those two things fit together?
100%.
Very much so.
100%. Absolutely.
Miguel, what do you think about this concept of keeping your seasoned team? And I think it's a key word there, motivated and engaged. Are there ways that you guys make sure that you're doing that as well?
Aside from their compensation, which is probably by far one of the best ways that you can motivate them, we have a El Dorado Furniture University, which trains all things furniture and sales process. And a lot of our seasoned sales associates are now part of the university. They're instructors, and all the incoming associates that coming into their organization, they go through a few weeks training, and they all specialize in bedding. You have associates that specialize in master bedroom groups and dinings, and that keeps them engaged because there's a different level of recognition for what they do. But I think by far the best way to engage, especially the seasoned associates, is to have a sales achievements awards gala. So once a year, we have a big event, something similar to the Oscars, where we celebrate top performers. We actually just got over one. We celebrated about 148 sales associates in the organization for their sales performance. This event is about sales. It's about sales associates' performance. It's about their leaders' performance at store level. All the public speakers there address them by name, storytell of everything that it took them to be recognized at that level of stage. And from 1 year to another, you see them work the entire year. Their leadership staff, it's a big motivating force behind them to make sure that they place a sit in that sales event. And it has been very successful for us.
It's interesting because there's a lot of the questions that came in that are really about that, keeping your veteran salespeople motivated and trained, et cetera. And I think that there's probably a lot of attention to that because there's been a lot of turnover. And so there's so much attention on the front end, right? The new people you're bringing in and trying to onboard and all that kind of good stuff. And I think there's an underlying sense here about not losing track of those seasoned good people. Because Rob, as you said early on, you lose them and you have a huge gap to fill in a lot of different ways. There's a lot of people listening that want those little nuggets, and I'm not sure that they're always gonna be available. But are there any new tools out there in really managing these sales teams? Are there some new tools that people should be aware of as they move their sales teams forward? Are there any of those such things, or is that just too simplistic here?
Well, in our organization, one thing that's really helped us was a CRM system. A CRM system is customer relationship management, but it really is a massive tool to help, number one, incentivize, keep track of all of your sales associates and what their daily activities are. And making sure that you're giving and keeping your sales associates engaged. What do they say? Idle minds is the devil's playground, right? I mean, so you want to keep your sales associates constantly moving, whether it's cleaning. Don't get me wrong, there's always going to be downtime. I'm not saying to constantly push them forward, but you want to keep their minds engaged, because just like anything else, you want to keep them warmed up. You want to get them ready for the next customer. You heard Miguel talk about it before. Traffic is slowing down a little bit, something that we're all going to experience. That's okay. There's plenty of income producing activities that we can utilize through a CRM. There's plenty of great ones. I know ClientBook is one of them. Nice is a great one. Sugar CRM, Microsoft 365. There's plenty of them out there. Salesforce, of course. But utilizing that CRM by putting the best possible leads and activities that are going to generate that sales associate income in front of them every single day is going to be paramount.
Matt, what do you think?
Yeah, to kind of piggyback on what Rob is saying, I think every bit of those pieces to the puzzle all kind of flow towards the follow up, and I think that's a lot of where we're missing. Um, you know, for the majority, understanding that people are going to tell you no as a sales associate, you know, but from a sales manager perspective, is giving them that why throughout the sales process of, sometimes it takes from a sales manager perspective to get in there and show them and do it and be a part of it, be a part of the process. And some of those new ones, I would be remiss if we didn't talk about the HFA Sales Academy a little bit and where it fits into this whole thing.
I was going to be leading to that.
Ongoing, yeah, well, it keeps that like Rob said, training the mind. I come from a baseball background, and the one thing that baseball, Major League Baseball players, guys that are making millions and millions of dollars, the very first place they go every year is to Florida or Arizona for spring training, and they stay there for an entire month. None of the games count, but it's their role play for an entire month for them to get way better at what they're doing every single year. And even the guys that have been there for 10, 15 years are coming back and doing that. And for me, even the HFA Sales Academy, it does a lot for me, even when I'm going back through and making sure that our content is tight and to the point and where it needs to be. But it's that key even for somebody that has been through it. So yeah, thank you, Caprice, or whoever put that up there.
That was Caprice. No, I think it's great. Rob, could you also, and Matt, I appreciate you teeing it up because it was where I was going to go next anyway. But can you, Rob, talk a little bit about the HFA Sales Academy and because we're responding to this incredible need out there.
Yeah, absolutely. So one thing that we recognized a long time ago in our organization was just like we said earlier on the call, we have these sales associates that are coming in that need ongoing training. Person-to-person training is obviously the best thing. You want to be able to sit everybody down in a classroom every single day. It's just unrealistic. For some organizations like ourselves, to hire sales trainers to go into our stores every single day is extremely expensive, and you lose some continuity. And so we built something for our teams to start with, and it really was successful in our stores. And then we partnered with the HFA to make it a little bit more broad-based across, all different platforms, from, everything from like El Dorado to an Ashley store to, our stores at Badcock. And so it's a generic sales process, but it's absolutely a process that every single sales associate can learn, can utilize, that's been proven by us, that's been proven by other organizations. And it's extremely simple to learn. And the main thing that we try to do every single morning in our organizations is to watch 2 to 3 sales videos, sales-oriented, motivational type videos to get our brains in motion, because we've came from the outside world and all the things that go along with it. And so we got to get that sales associate tipped off in the right direction. And this has been a great tool. It's a fully immersive learning platform. It is also an LMS. It can replace your LMS. There's opportunity for you to put your own content on there and even white label it for your brand. And so it's a great program. We're super excited about it. We've just started. We've just launched it. We're doing about 10 to 15 different videos a month. I'm actually sitting in my studio right now, and we're going to be giving you guys content based upon what your feedback is, a lot like what you guys have sent us in terms of questions. We're going to take that, regurgitate it on video, so that way your sales associates get that on demand, 365 days of the year. So we're really excited about it. And if anybody wants to take a look or sign up for a free demo, you're more than welcome to.
And it's www.hfasalesacademy.com. We appreciate that. And I'm just going to give one final chance here to Miguel, because Miguel, there's interesting the line there that it talked about. An untrained staff can cost you money. Clearly, I love what you've talked about today. You guys invest so much in your team and your high-performing teams because you understand that does impact the bottom line positively, regardless, right? This is some of the best money you guys can be spending is by putting this attention into your sales teams, correct? Miguel?
That's direct. Oh, that's direct. Okay. Definitely. There's a lot of focus that needs to go to the associate from the time that they start on your sales floor. There needs to be training. There needs to be coaching after training, especially by your seasoned associates. Then sales manager's role. has to be constantly supporting them, coaching them, helping them become better at what they do. Never nothing related to punishment, write-ups, because that does the opposite of what we want. We want to make sure that they are motivated, that they feel supported, that they understand that you know that they're going to make mistakes. Rather how you react to their mistakes. How do you help them get out of it? How do you learn from them? So a lot of our resources go to that, making sure that the associate feels backed up. And in turn, what they're going to do is they're going to treat your customers how you want them to be taken care of.
What a great way to end this. We appreciate it. Miguel Valle with El Dorado Furniture, Rob Ball, Matt Pridemore with the HFA Sales Academy. Appreciate all of you. I want to just, of course, as always, anybody watching this webinar, I want to wish you good sales and good health, and we will see you next time. On behalf of all the team here at HFA, I'm Mark Schumacher. We'll see you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.